What if the shift already happened? What if the strangest thing about shifting timelines is that you don't feel the moment it happens? There is no flash of light. No doorway suddenly opens in your bedroom. No announcement tells you that you've crossed from one version of reality into another. Instead, life continues. You wake up in the same room. You recognize your face in the mirror. Your phone contains the same contacts. The streets outside still have the same names. And yet, something feels different. A familiar room suddenly feels unfamiliar. A conversation you clearly remember apparently never happened. An object disappears from the place where you know you left it, only to reappear somewhere you already checked. Someone you've known for years suddenly seems strangely different. Or perhaps the change is even more subtle. The light looks different. The atmosphere feels unusually still. Your body experiences a sudden chill. You hear a faint electrical hum, and for several seconds you experience the unmistakable feeling that reality has somehow shifted. But here's where things become interesting. Modern physics really does describe reality at microscopic scales in ways that challenge ordinary intuition. Quantum systems can exist in superpositions. Entangled particles produce correlations that classical physics cannot reproduce. Interaction with the environment causes quantum systems to lose observable coherence through decoherence. CERN itself describes decoherence as environmental interactions rapidly suppressing quantum interference. But none of this demonstrates that human consciousness jumps between macroscopic parallel realities. So today, we're going to stand at the boundary between established science, psychology, and one fascinating speculative possibility. Because whether you call these experiences cognitive anomalies, synchronicities, perception shifts, or timeline glitches, there are patterns worth examining. Here are 5 signs that can make it feel as though you've shifted timelines without realizing it. Sign 1. The physics of personal glitches. Imagine this. You're sitting quietly in your home. Nothing unusual is happening. Then suddenly, a cold sensation moves through your body. The room feels strangely still. Maybe you notice a faint static-like sensation in your ears. For a moment, your surroundings appear unusually vivid. Then everything returns to normal. Experiences like these sometimes get interpreted online as micro-shifts, brief moments when consciousness supposedly transitions between neighboring versions of reality. But we need to distinguish the experience from the explanation. Sudden chills can come from the nervous system. Changes in sound perception can have ordinary environmental or physiological causes. Altered attention can make familiar surroundings briefly appear unusually vivid or strange. And quantum decoherence doesn't mean that your kitchen table is constantly jumping between timelines. Quite the opposite. Decoherence helps explain why the strange quantum behavior observable in carefully isolated microscopic systems becomes extremely difficult to maintain when those systems interact with their environment. Yet the philosophical question remains fascinating. If quantum mechanics allows multiple possible outcomes before measurement, what does that tell us about the deeper architecture of reality? That's where interpretations such as the many worlds interpretation enter the conversation. And that's also where CERN inevitably gets mentioned. In 2026, CERN's Large Hadron Collider completed the final phase of Run 3. The machine reached nominal Run 3 performance and routinely operated with about 1.8 times 10 to the 11th power protons per bunch during its high-performance period. CERN reported that Run 3 ultimately delivered more than twice the integrated luminosity achieved during Run 2. The final physics collisions occurred on June 14, 2026, followed by high-intensity machine studies before the LHC entered its major upgrade shutdown. These collisions allow physicists to investigate fundamental particles and forces under extraordinary conditions. But there is no CERN result showing that those collisions destabilize local timelines. There is no measured connection between LHC luminosity and people experiencing Mandela effects. And there is no evidence that particle collisions are rewriting your memories. That distinction matters. The science is extraordinary enough without inventing results. So instead of asking, "Did CERN change my timeline?" ask something more useful. What exactly changed in my experience, and can I document it? Write down the date, the location, your physical sensations. What happened immediately before it? What happened afterward? Don't decide what it means yet. Become the observer. Because a real reality check begins with observation, not conclusion. Sign 2. The memory discrepancy signal. The second sign is much stranger. You remember something clearly, but nobody else does. Not vaguely, not like a half-forgotten childhood memory. You can see the room. You remember the conversation. You remember who was there. You remember what happened next. Then you mention it to someone who should remember. They stare at you. That never happened. This can be profoundly unsettling. But memory isn't a perfect recording device. Every time we remember something, the brain reconstructs elements of the event. Details can change. Separate memories can merge. Later information can become incorporated into earlier recollections. That's why one isolated discrepancy isn't good evidence for a timeline shift. Instead, look for patterns. Ask yourself, how old is the memory? Have I repeated the story many times? Could I have confused two similar events? Do photographs, messages, calendars, receipts, or other records clarify what happened? Do independent people remember it differently without influencing one another? That last question brings us to the Mandela effect. Collective cases where groups of people report remembering something differently from documented reality. For some people, this feels like evidence that realities have merged. Psychology offers less exotic explanations involving reconstructive memory, expectation, suggestion, cultural repetition, and shared cognitive biases. But whichever explanation you prefer, there's a powerful lesson here. Memory and reality are not identical, and when they conflict, investigate before interpreting. Sign 3. Sudden shifts in social resonance. The third sign doesn't happen around you. It happens between you and other people. Someone you've known for 10 years suddenly feels unfamiliar. They look the same. Their voice is the same. Their memories of you seem intact. But something in the relationship has changed. Conversations that once flowed effortlessly feel forced. Things you once cared about together no longer interest you. You may even experience the strange sensation of being an outsider inside your own social world. In timeline language, this is sometimes described as social resonance drift. The idea is that when your internal trajectory changes, your relationships stop matching the version of you that is emerging. But there is also a grounded psychological interpretation. People change, you change, values evolve, attention changes, life circumstances alter relationships, and sometimes the person who feels unfamiliar isn't the person who changed. It's you. That realization can be more powerful than any paranormal explanation. Instead of immediately thinking, "I've entered a reality where this person is different," ask, "What has changed in me that makes this relationship feel different?" Your priorities, your boundaries, your ambitions, your emotional patterns, your tolerance for certain behaviors. Sometimes what feels like entering another reality is actually the moment you realize you no longer fit the identity you previously inhabited. and that can feel remarkably similar to waking up somewhere new. Sign 4. Physical artifacts of the jump. Now we reach one of the most commonly reported types of everyday glitch. You place your keys on the table. 20 minutes later, they're gone. You search the table, your pockets, the kitchen, the bedroom. Nothing. Then, hours later, the keys are sitting directly on the table, exactly where you originally thought you left them. This phenomenon has accumulated many names online. Disappearing object phenomenon, reality glitches, timeline artifacts. But again, attention and memory provide powerful ordinary explanations. Humans don't continuously encode everything around them. We selectively notice. We overlook objects sitting directly in front of us. We perform habitual actions without forming strong memories of them. And expectations can actually interfere with visual search. But the digital version feels even stranger. You remember a message saying one thing. Later, it says something different. A file seems altered. A photograph isn't where you remember storing it. Before declaring a timeline shift, check synchronization, edit histories, backups, cloud versions, app updates, timestamps, shared account activity, and metadata where available. Create evidence, take screenshots, record dates, compare backups. Because there's an important principle running through this entire video. The stranger the claim, the more valuable careful documentation becomes. And there's another kind of artifact that can be even more unsettling. You see someone in public, recognition hits immediately. You know them, you approach them, and they have absolutely no idea who you are. Could you simply have mistaken them for someone else? Of course. But emotionally, the experience can be powerful because your brain produces recognition before your conscious mind has fully identified why. That gap between certainty and evidence is exactly where the feeling of a glitch lives. Sign 5. Your life trajectory changes before you notice. The fifth sign may be the most important, because sometimes nothing disappears. Nobody changes. You don't hear strange sounds. You simply wake up one morning and want something different. A habit you've struggled with for years suddenly feels easy to release. A career you've tolerated becomes impossible to ignore. You feel compelled to clean your environment, start exercising, write something, create something, leave something behind, or pursue an opportunity you've been avoiding. It feels as though another version of you is pulling from somewhere ahead. On Transmutation Vortex, we can call this the future self-echo. Not because science has demonstrated that your future self literally transmits information backward through parallel universes. It hasn't. But because psychologically, your imagined future identity can become a powerful feedback mechanism. When your internal model of who you're becoming changes, your present decisions can begin reorganizing around it. And suddenly your trajectory changes. Think of your life as a vector. Every repeated action gives that vector direction. One choice seems insignificant, but repeat it hundreds of times, and you've arrived somewhere completely different. Perhaps that is the most practical definition of a timeline shift. A change in trajectory large enough that your future becomes fundamentally different. How to stabilize the new reality. So what should you do when everything suddenly feels different? Don't panic. Don't immediately assign a supernatural explanation. Anchor yourself. Start with your physical environment. Look around. Name 5 things you can see. Notice what you hear. Feel your feet against the floor. Slow your breathing. Then document what happened. Write. What changed? What evidence do I have? What might explain it? What am I assuming? What direction do I want to move from here? This keeps curiosity from turning into certainty without evidence. Next, Establish continuity. Maintain your sleep. Keep your routines. Journal. Spend time outside. Talk to people you trust. Keep timestamps and records if you're investigating repeated anomalies. And then ask the most important question: what timeline am I creating through my choices right now? Because whether parallel realities exist exactly as imagined or not, one fact remains undeniable. Your choices alter your future. Your habits alter probabilities. Your relationships influence opportunities. Your attention influences behavior, and your behavior changes what happens next. Conclusion: become the navigator. CERN has spent decades pushing physics toward the deepest layers of matter. Quantum mechanics continues to reveal a universe far stranger than everyday intuition suggests. Fundamental particles can be represented as excitations of quantum fields, and quantum phenomena behave very differently from familiar macroscopic experience. But physics has not established that the LHC is causing people to jump timelines. And perhaps we don't need that claim to recognize something profound. Reality is constantly changing, and so are you. The question isn't simply, did I shift timelines? The deeper question is, where is my current trajectory taking me? Watch the patterns. Question your memories without automatically distrusting them. Observe changes without immediately explaining them. Pay attention to relationships. Document anomalies. Listen to the future self-echo. And when you recognize that your current path no longer leads toward the reality you want, change direction. Maybe the greatest timeline shift isn't something that mysteriously happens to you. Maybe it begins the moment you consciously choose what happens through you. This is Transmutation Vortex. And if you're ready to explore consciousness, reality, quantum mysteries, and the hidden architecture of transformation, subscribe and join us. And before you leave, answer this in the comments. What's the strangest glitch you've experienced that you still can't explain? Because somewhere between memory, perception, physics, and possibility, there are still questions waiting to be explored.